Here's what one writer said. The pre-Christian god Mithras was born of a virgin on December 25th, considered a great traveling teacher, had 12 disciples, promised immortality to his followers, and sacrificed himself for world peace. That sounds kind of bogus, doesn't it? Was buried in a tomb and rose 3 days later, instituted a Lord's Supper, and was called the Way, the Truth, and the Life. Is that true? And if that were true, it'd shake us to the foundation. It's simply not true. Get this now. Mithras sacrificed a bull in mythology. Mithras didn't die. In mythology, there's no story of the resurrection of Mithras. Neither did the bull get resurrected. Bull's an appropriate word for some of these statements here. So what happens is Christianity's spreading. It runs into this Mithraism cult, and they say, well, that sounds good. Let's borrow the story of the resurrection of Christ and try to add it to what we believe. And the amazing observation is this: if Christianity, let's suppose that this charge is true, that Christianity just copied all these other religions. How come nobody in the Roman Empire noticed that? I mean, here's Christianity spreading like wildfire throughout the entire Roman Empire. In 70 years, Christianity spread throughout the entire Roman Empire, and apparently none of these new believers noticed. You know, that sounds an awful lot like what the guy in these other religions is teaching. Did you borrow that from them? Nobody seemed to notice that. There are no writings about this until late in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th centuries. We're going to appeal to a scholar here who researched all these things. He's not a Christian. His name is T.N.D. Mettinger. He is a Swedish scholar at Lund University who wrote a book called The Riddle of the Resurrection. We'll see if we can find him here in the book. And this guy's has really done the research. He's got a lot of credentials. And here's what he says. He wrote one of the most recent academic treatments of dying and rising gods in antiquity. He admits in his book, now get this, The Riddle of the Resurrection, that the consensus among modern scholars, nearly universal, is that there were no dying and rising gods that predated Christianity. They all postdated the 1st century. Obviously, that timing is absolutely crucial. In other words, who plagiarized who? Who borrowed from who? Christianity couldn't have borrowed the idea of the resurrection if myths about dying and rising gods weren't even circulating when Christianity was birthed in the 1st century A.D. Now, there are basically 3 specifics that I want to draw attention to. The 3 most popular versions of this ancient gods being compared to Jesus Christ, and you'll see. I mean, there's just no parallel at all there, and that's the conclusion that Mettinger came to too. There's just that the death and resurrection of Christ is completely unique in religious history, and of course that's one of the claims that we make, that Christianity is very unique in that area. We'll come back in just a few minutes, and I want to finish this and try to draw some conclusions from it. But check out our sponsors, please, and come back and watch the rest of Church for Skeptics. You have tried to mend your broken heart. You have cried till your tears have dried. The dryness of your soul is the empty well you have fallen in. Come talk to me. And your father and your friend talk to me. Talk to me. I am the only one. Talk to me.
to me.
Hi, welcome back to Church for Skeptics. We're talking about the accusation that's become very popular that Christianity is a copycat religion, that there were stories of rising and dying gods being sacrificed, some of them with really specific Christian ideas in them, including being born of a virgin. When you look into the details of this, it completely falls apart. Any rising and dying God stories that may have been attached to pre-Christian gods, and certainly there were plenty of those, but the stories of rising and dying came much later than Christianity, and so they actually borrowed the information from Christianity and tried to force it into their religions. I also want to mention that if you are watching this, and we've done a whole series on these accusations, including the alternative gospels and a lot of the things that are coming up, textual criticism of the Bible, did the church alter the text, and so forth. This is the last program in this series, but they will be shown. What I do is I make 10 or 11 programs, and they show, and then we repeat that series for those who might have missed them or would find interest in some of these things. So you can go back. If you keep watching Church for Skeptics, after you see this program, then you can just start over and see the same programs again and sort of keep up with it, like the program 24, I hope, which is one of my favorites. But anyway, let's get back into this issue here of rising and dying gods that supposedly predated Christianity. As we've read from the scholar T.N.D. Mettinger, who researched this and wrote one of the more recent results of this. And again, let me mention, this has already been done. From 1900 to 1920, this notion was popularized by a German theological school, or school of religious history, actually. And then research was done between 1920 and 1940. And after 1940, nobody wrote about this. Nobody used this argument because it had been disproven. But now, 70 years have gone by. Let's bring it up again and try it again. We're going to get pretty specific here and talk about some of these gods. And in the process, we kind of need to talk about what mystery religions are. Mystery religions were a group of religions that came from, they may have started even in Egypt, but there were mystery religions in Persia, there were mystery religions in Asia Minor. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show that there was a mystery religion very, very, very early in history. I hope to get to that. I need to make sure I get to that, actually. They're all a little different. They all have different gods that they worship, but they had some similarities, one of which was that they were secret religions. The information was secret. They had a priestly class of people who were the only ones allowed to teach the secret knowledge to a few worthy individuals, and those individuals then were pledged to secrecy. They met in secret worship centers, you might call them, most of them in caves of some type. That's about, most of them, one common characteristic of most of them is that their gods revolved or had to do with fertility rites and the vegetation cycle. A lot of ancient cultures worshiped what they thought were the gods of the fields, the gods of the rain, the gods that produced their crops. And so a lot of this idea of dying and living and dying again and living again are simply ideas of the seasons that were included in these things. But there's really no connection there at all to Christianity.